What happens when a dad's love for his son sparks a rebellion against a colorless HOA, challenging the very definition of community? And can laughter truly outshine the ghosts of pretentiousness? Before we begin today's insane story, show some love if you've ever survived a wild Karen meltdown. Drop a like and let me know your craziest Karen run-in you've had down in the comments. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another jaw-dropping showdown. The HOA board meeting was a scene straight out of an absurd comedy. As I clutched the back of Liam's wheelchair, feeling the warmth of his bright smile wash over me, I realized we were gladiators in an arena of pastels and power trips. The board sat there with their furrowed brows and pouts, like children who'd just bitten into a lemon, fierce and utterly unyielding. I could see Veronica Hargrove, the commander-in-chief of this misguided operation, furiously scribbling notes on her clipboard, probably calculating how many shades of beige would go into our neighborhood's next paint job. I could hardly suppress a chuckle. I mean, really, visual clutter? Liam's wheelchair was the most vibrant explosion of color the sleepy suburb had ever seen. Who needed more pinks and whites when you had an 11-year-old who was a walking, wheeling giggle factory? With the fury of 1,000 suns radiating from my core, I steadied myself and cleared my throat, prepared to unleash my defense of Liam to this band of pastel perfectionists. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice ringing stronger than I felt. "Unless your name is Michelangelo, or you've just stepped off a movie district set, stop pretending that you're the arbiters of beauty. I would argue that kicking my son out of our shared spaces because of his wheelchair isn't an aesthetic decision. It's an affront to humanity, a travesty, a faux pas on par with wearing socks with sandals." The collective gasp of astonishment was everything I had hoped for, and more. I could have sworn I saw one lady choke on her flavored LaCroix. Poetic justice, if you ask me. As the board president, Miss Hargrove, no blood relation, just unfortunate coincidence, sputtered into his microphone about community standards and decorum, I could feel the heat radiating from Liam's chair. Liam, bless his adorable heart, jumped in with an impromptu quip. "You call this decorum? It's like a crafting party at Grandma's gone horribly wrong." A peal of laughter erupted from the audience. I couldn't help but throw my arm around his shoulders and laugh along. It felt good to turn the tide of hostility into encouragement, to uplift Liam's spirited inquisition while I cranked up the volume on our ridiculosity. And just like that, I realized I had a secret weapon, my son's irrepressible sense of humor and charm. Nonetheless, as the meeting droned on, it became painstakingly clear that reason wouldn't bring these people around. I could pack all the logic, heartfelt speeches, and community spirit into a suitcase, and this HOA wouldn't budge. So, what was a dad to do? In that moment, as I looked around that bland meeting room, my mind birthed a plan so wild it could only be conceived under the duress of incredulity. Why don't we take that flashy clubhouse that you all just love to control and turn it into something that actually helps people? I pitched, practically jumping out of my sneakers from excitement. Let's make it a rehab center for kids with disabilities, designed specifically for kids like Liam. Think about it. We could give back instead of gatekeeping. The floodgates opened as I began to flesh out my idea, adrenaline surging through my veins. We could have game nights, sports days, and even art classes. You could have the gleeful cries of children wafting through the air instead of the sighs of discontent over sprinkler misuse. This place could be a hub of activity. I threw my arms wide, glancing at Liam, who was already bright-eyed, mid-smirk, as the room turned quieter. Did I hear someone say, "crazy"? I didn't care, because while I was activating the woo side of my brain, the board members looked at each other in scandalized silence. It was like watching a tennis match, but instead of serves, I was tossing out vibrant visions of joy. "You can't just take over our clubhouse." Veronica's icy tones sliced through my optimism like a chainsaw through a can of butter. My colleagues and I worked very hard to ensure its aesthetic integrity. We have rules. Rules. What a funny concept. Someone should tell Veronica that rules aren't more critical than the laughter of kids in wheelchairs or those who use crutches. I stared her down, basking in my righteous indignation. And yet, Here we are enforcing rules that hurt people's feelings, create division, and turn children's laughter into collateral damage. You know, the sort of atmosphere I thought was beneath us as neighbors and friends. Change is hard, but maybe it's time you embrace some chaos. The following weeks became a whirlwind of planning, community fundraising, and genuine transformation. People rallied around the idea of a rehab center. Even those formerly entrenched in the "what's that noise" mentality joined hands to create something beautiful. There were paint jobs, advanced wheelchair-accessible ramps, bright, cheerful murals depicting rolling hills and imaginative landscapes, and of course, Liam's inspiration-fueled sketches decorating every corner. The day of the grand opening approached faster than I could comprehend, and I just hoped I wouldn't step on any of Veronica's toes as I triumphantly cut the ribbon. Heart racing, I reiterated to Liam how we had turned the tide. Instead of being booted out, we had done the unthinkable. The clubhouse wasn't just a space now, it was a beacon of hope. Was this the beginning of truly inclusive community living? The moment the ribbon was cut, an explosion of colors burst forth from the grand opening celebration, echoing the triumph of our crazy, audacious ambition. My heart raced as laughter filled the air, mingling with the cheerful chatter of parents and ecstatic children zipping around the colorful ADA-compliant playground surrounding our freshly minted rehab center. Yet, as I absorbed the atmosphere soaked in joy and delight, I couldn't shake the residual thrill from turning the notoriously uptight clubhouse into a family-friendly space. I leaned over to Liam, who was practically bouncing in his wheelchair. "We did it, buddy. This place is legendary." His laughter bubbled up uncontrollably, and he shouted back, "I knew you were a superhero all along, Dad." Who knew that a dad with a playful spirit and a few wild ideas could turn the HOA's snobby atmosphere on its head? As the celebration blossomed in full swing, I couldn't help but notice the juxtaposition of joy swirling within our little paradise against the backdrop of razor-sharp scowls peeping through the hedges from the HOA board members who had shown up under the guise of surveillance. There they were, like disgruntled squirrels surveying the newfound chaos, their immaculate tailored outfits clashing ludicrously with the glittering streamers and wildly colorful balloons. Veronica, clad in a perfectly tailored aquamarine suit, held her clipboard tighter than a lifebuoy tossed into a turbulent sea. "Those decorations will definitely violate aesthetic standards," I could hear her muttering, the mere thought causing her brows to furrow deeper than a plowed field. Glancing back at Liam, I whispered with unmistakable glee, "What do you suppose she thinks an aesthetic standard is? The ultimate trivia question? How many shades of beige can one use to annoy the universe?" To spice up the excitement, Liam and I had a little competition planned, a friendly race down the new wheelchair-friendly ramp against his best buddy Sam, who wheeled around in a zippy new chair. "On your marks, get set, go," I proclaimed in my best race announcer voice, dramatically waving my arms as if summoning the crowds of the Olympics. The kids sped down the ramp like rockets, with hoots and shouts of encouragement trailing behind them. Parents cheered, throwing popcorn in the air, full of joy that could only be equaled by watching a sunset over the desert. As I snapped photos, my heart swelled with pride. My son was thriving, surrounded not by the sour grumbles of elitists, but by laughter and unadulterated fun, the very way community should be enjoyed. In between rounds of exhilarating races, we hosted a brilliant arts and crafts session, with the kids painting a colossal mural showcasing rainbows, fluffy clouds, and cartoon superheroes. Liam's super sidekicks, of course. The designs were chaotic yet beautiful, filled with their imaginative visions of what this space represented: freedom, friendship, and the boundless potential of inclusivity. I could hardly contain myself as I watched 6 different children, arms smeared with paint, giggling while splattering colors onto every inch of the canvas. I snapped more pictures to capture these precious moments, blissful memories forged in the spirit of togetherness. Amongst the cheers, I could hear Liam's laughter louder than all of them, a sound that reverberated within me, reminding me of why I fought so fiercely in that strange meeting room weeks ago. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a conspicuously colorful figure trudging through. Veronica Hargrove had ventured closer, clipboard still in hand. a stormy look melding with stubborn curiosity. "Ethan," she called with an icy sweetness, "isn't this a tad too chaotic for a civilized affair? Imagine a polar bear trying to fit in at a luau." I couldn't help but roll my eyes. What's civilized about banning children from enjoying a place meant for community? I shot back with a grin. I actually enjoyed her discomfort. After all, she had stymied so many plans just because they didn't fit her idea of perfection. "Look around, Veronica. Kids are making memories. And they happen to be cooler than any beige paint sample you could possibly concoct." She stood there, bewildered but unwilling to admit defeat, her expression oscillating between bewilderment and grudging admiration. As the excitement continued, I noticed a semblance of unity trickling in through the gathering crowd. Neighbors who once recoiled at the thought of any unorthodox fun began to mingle, laughing over shared snacks and stories. It was a peculiar gallery of contrasting characters. Parents in yoga pants exchanging recipes alongside retirees, keeping an eye on the spread of goodies. Dark clouds of past snobbery began to dissipate, revealing a hint of camaraderie over shared pizza slices. Folks actually laughed together, halting the deep-seated divisions cultivated by a punishable, unforgiving HOA culture. "See, Veronica," I shouted across the lawn. "Maybe a little chaos isn't so bad after all." The squint of disapproval was magnificent, almost artistic in its bitterness, and although the day was filled with laughter and triumph, I could already picture the upcoming HOA planning sessions. I had ignited a spark that wasn't going to fizzle out easily. The board could rally all their forces to try and rein in our newly formed little paradise, attempting to inject their drab aesthetics back into the neighborhood, but they would find it infinitely harder to erase the laughter, the joy, and the connections being formed. Liam grinned at me, knowing we had already won, and I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, we had paved the way for a future where community would reign supreme over pretentious looks. Would this chaotic push for change transform our neighborhood into something even the pastels would have to embrace? As the festivities raged on and the laughter of children echoed like a sweet symphony, I couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph fueling my every move. Liam and his crew had transformed the new rehab center into a veritable wonderland, with a bounce house that looked like it could inflate a small village, and brightly colored picnic tables littered with party favors and cheerful decorations. It was like Martha Stewart had a toddler and let him run wild with sprinkles and balloons. But amidst the glee, I spotted our resident HOA overlord, Veronica, stealthily lurking behind the lemonade stand. I raised an eyebrow, suspicious of whatever nefarious plan she was concocting under that carefully styled blonde hair. It was time to confront her. Maybe I'd even request her lucky clipboard for a game of bingo. Who knew what chaos might ensue? As I strolled over, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and mischief, I greeted her with a wide grin that could rival a Cheshire cat. "So, Veronica, enjoying the benefits of the facility you fought so hard against. What a twist of fate, eh?" I chuckled, reveling in the glee of turning her frown upside down. She squinted at me, eyes narrowing like a hawk zeroing in on a hapless mouse. "I just don't see how this aerial circus is a valid representation of community standards," she huffed, more concerned about her precious clipboard being marred by nearby cupcake frosting than any actual definitions of community engagement. Her distaste radiated off her in waves, as palpable as the scent of hot dog water circulating through the air. "You do realize it's meant to benefit children with disabilities, right? I can't imagine anyone in this neighborhood has ever cared about that," I replied playfully, my own voice dripping with mock innocence. But as I expertly dodged her attempts at scowl-induced intimidation, I made a quick mental note of the small, unanticipated gatherings forming around the crux of our activities. These were not just neighbors. They were a shifting tide of opinions. Families who had uphill avoided interaction with each other now shared stories of mishaps and memories as they dove into the craft station. I glanced out towards the makeshift art corner where Liam and his pals were creating a mural reminiscent of a riotous cartoon explosion, complete with oversized crayon-reminiscent signatures. But I was astounded even more by a group of parents united, cheering on their kids' artistry while waving their lunch sacks like flags of victory. It was transforming into a mini-revolution, a bright rebellion against the drudgery of Veronica's beige tyranny. This isn't about ramps and wheelchairs anymore. It was about forging bonds that celebrated diversity. As if on cue, a child whipped past me in a rickety red wagon, giggling at the sheer thrill of being swept away by their raucous laughter. Right behind them was Sam, who bested his previous speed record while wheeling madly down the painted pathways, a tiny superhero in flyable motion. "Faster, faster," he yelled, which brought an infectious joy that threaded its way through the hearts of every adult present, me included. Even Veronica's stoic facade began to crack as she glanced at the sheer, unfiltered delight on the kids' faces. I felt a wave of inspiration rumbling through me. I wanted to crank up the funometer even higher. With a dramatic flourish, I summoned Liam, Sam, and the other kids for a display of talent that would leave our foreboding HOA in stitches or even gasp some semblance of a diplomatic conversation. "All right, everyone, gather round for the first ever Lucas's Rehab Center talent show," I shouted, my voice booming like a carnival barker. A chorus of excited squeals erupted in response, and I watched as faces lit up with dazzling anticipation, proving, undeniably, that pure chaos can lead to something spectacular. Kids clamored together in spontaneous groups, showcasing their unique skills. Liam, ever the entertainer, rolled onto the stage like a conquering hero, inspiring bursts of applause as he delivered a stand-up routine about the ludicrous things his father said when he tried to help with math homework. Dad was like, "Liam, if x equals 5, how can my pizza potentially be more than 5 slices?" The laughter that erupted was a glorious sight to behold, the uptight clouds of the HOA slowly eroding into nothingness in the wake of jovial noise. It was as if the whole neighborhood had finally stepped out of the gloom of entitlement and into a world where everyone mattered, even if they occasionally forgot their children's names in the clamor of crowd dynamics. Each act stirred a deeper sense of unity, culminating in parents awkwardly dancing to whatever tune was being played over the loudspeakers, while a Luthfall erupted into unexpected flash mobs. The unexpected sight of Veronica swaying slightly as if lost in thought, while tapping her foot, made me suppress a snicker. Who knew a community event could invoke such wild abandon? At one point, she even faintly clapped along to the rhythm, which we all agreed was nearly a historical achievement for the HOA regime. As the day began to wind down, smiles flourished, and connections blossomed like wild dandelions sprouting through cracked concrete, a true testament to the spirit of what we were building. Shots of joy-filled children gone wild mingled with the echoing cheers from the parents chanting variations of "Bravo!" It clicked. This clubhouse had transformed from a stuffy meeting room into an oasis of hope, and just like that, we had turned the tide. Liam overheard a couple of nearby parents remarking on how this atmosphere felt rejuvenating, and with that contagious smile of his, he looked at me and said, "Dad, can we do this every weekend? Because I think we're finally making color out of gray." I leaned back on the picnic table, buzzing with delight, as I allowed the energy of victory wash over me. The battle may have been just beginning, but here at Lucas's Rehab Center, we'd carved a spot where laughter, warmth, and acceptance reigned, not discontented attitudes or absurd standards. Would the HOA remain a focus of irritation, or was I beginning to see glimpses of something far grander, a potential collaboration for brighter, more inclusive ambitions? As the clamor of laughter and applause began to dwindle, and the last remnants of our colorful day wound down like the remnants of a good party hat, I took a moment to savor the atmosphere of the newly christened Lucas's Rehab Center. Families basked in the afterglow of shared joy, the delicious aroma of cotton candy still mingling in the air with the memories we'd just created. Each child's beaming smile was like a sugary cherry on top of the day's events, and I knew that we had unleashed something powerful. Laughter, kindness, and understanding were not just ephemeral qualities. They were the very fabric of a community that had been dormant for far too long. Glancing over at my son, who was wheeling around a group of giggling kids, I couldn't help but revel in the success we had wrought together in the face of the HOA's scornful disdain. But the pause for reflection was cut short, as I noticed Veronica emerging from her previously regimented spot near the lemonade stand, clipboard in hand, looking like a general whose troops had just rebelled. Her expression was a fascinating concoction of frustration and something that might have almost resembled admiration. I mentally prepared myself for the inevitable confrontational speech about how this living rainbow was a mere blip on the HOA's radar, and I couldn't help but chuckle. Veronica, you've returned from battle. Care to share your thoughts on the visual chaos before you? I exclaimed with an exaggerated flourish, channeling my inner comedian as I sidestepped tactfully around a pile of mismatched party hats. Just as I suspected, she launched into a tirade about structural integrity and noise violations. Apparently, 20 children laughing too hard had surpassed the HOA's designated decibel limit. I nearly burst out laughing. I mean, really? Who created that rule? Listen, I know it's tough being the fun police, but how much fun can one really have in a beige universe? I shot back, my own voice overflowing with irreverence as the words tumbled out, practically daring her to retaliate. To my surprise, she blinked, catching a whiff of the levity surrounding us, a wave of joy that had started to encroach upon even her rigid perspective. Was I imagining it? Or was there a hint of confusion behind her perfectly applied mascara? The tide seemed to be shifting, folks. As we bantered back and forth like high school debate champions, I could see other residents inching closer, some carrying kids who were tired but still buzzing with excitement. The air was thick with a sense of camaraderie, curiosity about what might happen next. Ethan, Veronica finally began, my name rolling off her tongue as though she was preparing to declare war. These children are clearly having a splendid time, but she paused, searching for the right words as if they had scuttled away from her clipboard in fright. But it isn't the community I envisioned. My heart raced at the golden opportunity unfolding before me. Perhaps I could convert even a little bit of her skepticism into acceptance, and dare I say, an ally in my quest? With playful resolve, I leaned in closer. What if we had a monthly event? Reignite our neighborhood spirit? How about a family fun day that showcases our children's talents, provides some refreshments, and even brings a few engaging activities for adults now and then? I proposed, every word carefully crafted to entice and charm. The idea bounced around the air like a happy little puppy, and the glimmer in her eyes, was it hope or just indignation? I've noticed that when we unite to celebrate our strengths and support one another, we build something better. Wouldn't you want your vision of a perfect community to include the laughter of children? My casual nonchalance paired with genuine passion wrapped around my words, whispering sweet nothings into the heart of her clipboard. I stood there, buoyed by optimism, watching her wrestle with the specter of change, the community momentum behind me making every second tick like a countdown to a much-anticipated event. Just then, Liam wheeled over, his face exhibiting the innocence and excitement of a child who understood nothing of our adult interactions. "Hey, Dad, don't forget about the magic show next week. Can I bring my friend Sam?" he squeaked. I nodded enthusiastically, grateful for the perfect comedic timing that came naturally to my son. All of a sudden, Veronica's expression shifted again, a light dawning within her calculating blue eyes. "A magic show, you say? Well, that could entertain the neighborhood, and—" She stopped, presumably to weigh the social ramifications of allowing such a thrilling spectacle, but perhaps also the weight of her rigid expectations. With her contemplative silence left hanging midair, I exchanged a glance with Liam. He shrugged, seemingly indifferent to the fate of HOA regulations, as long as there were balloon animals involved. Could we start considering inclusivity as an ornament in the home decor of our community? I chimed in, inviting her to fill the silence with potential. "Veronica, every great community evolves. Don't you want ours to flourish with compassion and creativity? After all, isn't it wonderful to see our kids thriving together?" The crowd around us stood in eager anticipation, unsure whether our interaction was a bouquet of harmony or a ticking time bomb, while thoughts danced in my head. Which would it be today? In a curious switch, I found myself sensing that the walls of disdain might end up crumbling. If not today, perhaps in the future. Could we pave the way for true community engagement? I hoped that Veronica could embrace the outburst of vibrant joy we were creating together. As we all settled into an unexpected truce dancing in the air, I could feel it. The echoes of laughter resonating in unison, a sound that might just make even the most rigid HOA guidelines begin to rethink what it meant to be a real community. Would we manage to combine the cheer of children and Veronica's ambitions into a colorful tapestry of purpose? The road ahead shimmered with possibilities, and all it took was some laughter, joy, and an inflatable wheelchair flamboyantly framing the path to a stronger togetherness. The day after my little tete-a-tete with Veronica, the energy buzzing at Lucas's Rehab Center felt like the aftermath of a great concert, complete with residual adrenaline and a sprinkle of confetti all over the place. Fueled by last week's success, I threw myself into planning our first monthly Family Fun Day. I enlisted Liam and some other kids to help brainstorm ideas, all while dodging the occasional flailing craft project set in motion by my feverish excitement. Liam, chirping with the enthusiasm only a child could muster, suggested a wheelchair relay race. Not missing a beat, Aaron, a little boy with the fiercest imagination, pitched a talent show where the wilder, the better. They were phenomenally enthusiastic, and their excitement was contagious, melting away any lingering frustration from our HOA meetings. I could practically hear the dismantling of Veronica's clipboard clips with every sparkling giggle in the room. And let me tell you, it felt good. As I dove deeper into my role as not just a father, but a budding community leader, I decided that it was high time I ventured into the HOA depths and faced the infamous Veronica Hargrove one more time. Deep down, I didn't think that keeping a reckless band of children under noise control measures would suffice to chase away our successes. Armed with hastily drawn concept art for our Family Fun Day and a gourmet donut box, aka the smooth talking bait, I marched myself toward the HOA meeting like a knight heading into battle, uncertain and perhaps a little bit excited about the skirmish ahead. As the board members took their seats, and those dreaded white folding chairs were set up under flickering fluorescent lights, I only hoped that I wouldn't be charged with disturbance of their precious HOA peace. The stage was set, surrounding the table, clad in their patterned blouses and unyielding blazers. They could barely mask their disdain, yet curiosity sparked in some members' eyes. The donut box, my trusty co-pilot, was staring down the formidable Veronica, who luxuriously perched atop her tyrant throne, the seat at the head of the table holding her clipboard like a warlord's scepter. "Mr. Miller," she drawled, that near scornful tone wrapped in a thin veil of professional politeness. I can almost see her mental gears wondering why I had the audacity to disturb their meticulously organized gathering. Grinning brightly, I cut the tension with my butter knife charm. "Thank you for gathering, everyone. Prepare yourselves for a deliciousness blitz while I discuss our delightful community endeavor." The stunned silence that followed was almost palpable, but donuts are eternal peacemakers. I flung open the box with an array of sugary temptations that seemed to momentarily freeze their disdain. Between bites and baffled expressions, I seized the moment, launching into my pitch for Family Fun Day. Like an eager performer at a far too kind audition, I painted brilliantly chaotic pictures of the day's events, complete with Liam's relay race and the talent show, where we would unleash the concealed talents of the neighborhood kids. As I watched their expressions morph from skepticism to cautious intrigue, I thought, oh, this is going surprisingly well. The air around the table began to smell a bit less of fear and more of muffled giggles, accompanied by the inexplicable allure of fried dough. Who could resist? As I regaled them with tales of kids narrowing down their dreams of becoming magicians or the audacious thought of star performances, Veronica sat in a state of disbelief. No clipboard, no scowls. Instead, she tapped her fingers rhythmically on the table, a clear and present sign that I had bitten once again into the apple of community spirit. And imagine, I continued, seeing collaborations sprouting within our neighborhood, reconnecting neighbors, and gasp, bringing laughter into this sometimes so serious HOA existence. I flashed dramatic expressions for effect, and the few chuckles ricocheting off the walls only fueled my showmanship. In that enchanted moment, I realized I was not just a dad defending his son. I was a spark, igniting a chain reaction of possibilities that lay dormant. A light seemed to dawn at some far corner of Veronica's mind, the faintest flicker that perhaps altering her rigid ways was worth considering. "Mr. Miller," if we were to opt for this event. Her impeccably manicured fingers brushed aside any protestations about chaos or unruliness. I would, of course, need clear guidelines for safety and proper planning. Oh ho! I could feel the joy rising up like the levitating donuts. Absolutely, Veronica. Here's my official proposal. I laid out the details, promising safety protocols like a CEO launching a new product, striking deals with laughter woven into the very terms. The enthusiastic exchange of words and ideas flew around the table, and for a second, it felt like magic was being performed right in front of our eyes. No wands needed. With the agreement swirling within the room, I walked away feeling triumphant. My heart beat like a drum celebrating victory. Who would have imagined I could turn the tides with a sprinkle of joy and some delicious donut magic? Their resistant nature had softened, all thanks to my relentless pursuit of a happier community. Back at the Rehab Center, I reported the triumph with captivating flair to Liam and the kids who cheered like rock stars when I announced our magical family fun day was officially greenlit. In those moments, I realized that even the most stubborn hearts could be swayed through kindness, laughter, and maybe a little sugar. I grinned at the excited faces surrounding me, knowing that those moments of absurdity and joy paved the path for a vibrant transformation. HOA, SHMOA. Through this brilliantly chaotic journey, I learned that all you needed was a heart full of laughter and a sprinkle of imagination to flip the script. Who knows what other thrilling surprises awaited down this road of community building. Thanks for tuning into this insane entitled Karen story. If you're craving more wild Karen showdowns, check out our video on the right. Or if you trust YouTube's instincts, pick the one on the left. Whichever you choose, brace yourself. There's plenty more meltdown madness where today's story came from.